long-running series I've never touched before, I tend to start with the very first game, like I showed in my last video with Bonk's Adventure in Valus. So, since I hadn't tried Fire Emblem, I should start with the Famicom game, Ankoku Ryotu Hikari no Tsurugi. But after the bad taste left by the fuckular train wreck that was Final Fantasy II, fuck that, I am still in no mood for any more Famicom-only RPGs. So, we're gonna skip right on ahead into the third dimension, with what is also the first console version released in America. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance for GameCube. In my eyes, Nintendo sequels on the GameCube were hit and miss. Wind Waker wasn't up to usual Zelda standards, and Mario Sunshine left a gaping hole in my heart. But goddamn, F-Zero GX and Metroid Prime beat an amount of ass equal to their Super NES counterparts. So I figured this game could go either way. But I had a good feeling. So to get myself in a nice nostalgic Nintendo mood, I even brought out the happy purple box that could. So yeah, so now we're playing with power and all that old school shit. As most know, Fire Emblem is a series of tactical RPGs. That usually makes people think of Final Fantasy Tactics, but personally, I found the most epic tactical RPGs to be Shining Force 2 and the original Disgaea. So how's the first 3D entry in this series stack up? Well, it starts off pretty awkward, mostly because of Titania, who's already promoted a paladin and winds up being a fucking whore that robs everyone else of badly needed experience points. Oh well, at least she's easier on the eyes than the flat-chested female leads in Disgaea.
Well, excuse us for being flat!
However, being the sucker for tactical RPGs that I am, I stuck with it and soon found myself totally absorbed. Yeah, graphically it looks super simplistic, but trust me, there's oceans worth of depth here. And what really helps move it along is the plot. It's not as unique and anti-hero-y as Disgaea, but it gets the job done. Basically, you follow Ike, son of a mercenary commander in a nation that's suddenly overrun by the forces of Dayan. You wind up in the employ of Crimea's princess and embark on a journey that spans the entire continent of Tellius. This sequel mixes it up with the introduction of the Lagoos, races of shape-shifting humans that can transform into either dragons, giant birds, or big cats. All fine and dandy, but let's just hope the artist didn't use this excuse to cater to fetishes, making the beasts of the Lagoos look like catgirls, and holy shit, that's exactly what Intelligent Systems did! Oh, but they gotta be in their animal form to attack. Does that make it better or worse? Unlike most Shining Force games, Path of Radiance is strictly battles and no real exploration, but the battlefields pack plenty of extra stuff to do. Some places have doors and chests you'll need your thief Volk to bust open, while some places have homes that need protecting from pillagers and will net you bonus items. This is how you'll find scrolls that grant skills. Most grant a specific power, while the super rare occult scrolls give an ability specific to each character class. Each character has a limited amount of capacity points for skills though, so choose wisely. For example, I gave Boyd here the Smite skill, which shoves a character 2 whole spaces ahead, and that'll let Ike move ahead just enough to start laying the smackdown on some candy asses. As for occult scrolls, using one for a paladin will bestow the soul skill, which regenerates an amount of HP equal to the hurt dished out, and for Ike, it'll grant Aether, which does that and lowers the enemy's defense. Another thing you can do to tip the scales in your favor is shell out money for custom forged weapons, which can have the power and critical percentage maxed out. You can even pick the color and the name, and obviously I had some fun with that. You need to play it smart, because victory isn't always clinched by wiping out every last enemy, and these fuckers can be total jerkasses. Oftentimes, nasty traps will be set up, such as ballistas that'll anal rape your air units, or shoving down boulders that'll roll over multiple troops. And the general air of assholeness that surrounds the enemy forces fits in well with the theme of the game, which emphasizes how an entire continent has been completely engulfed by a terrible war. There are those that'll always accuse Nintendo of being too kid-friendly, and point out how this game has no blood or overly graphic violence. Let them. Nintendo found subtler ways to drive home the horrors of war. And even though there's loads of disposable characters, there's plenty of compelling ones that drive the plot forward. One of my favorites was Jill, a Dane Wyvern rider who does a heel face turn and joins Ike. Through her, you learn of her country's fanatical hatred of the Lagoos, and you cheer her on as she finds her own path. Plus, she was one of my baddest ass soldiers, my go-to girl for almost everything. As for Ike himself, what's to be said? He's not as hellaciously badass as disguised Laharo, but he's not quite the stick in the mud you see in other tactical RPGs like Shining Force 2's Bowie. He's right in the middle, a tough, stern do-gooder with just enough contempt for authority to give him a fluid personality. So yeah, the only way you couldn't like him is if you're some filthy commie or something.
I like Ike.
So that just about covers how Path of Radiance fires on all cylinders and makes it kick-ass. And so far there have been clips that show Ike's mercenaries pretty much do nothing but kick-ass. Don't be led into thinking that the war for Tellius is that simple, because there are a few things that suck in this. Even though a good chunk of the opposition can be mowed down easily, you still gotta strategize and plan your troop movements very carefully. Sure, care should always be taken in issuing orders to underlings.
Attack!
But in this series, careful planning is vital because when soldiers go down, they stay down! See? Told you Nintendo had subtler ways. And with the way I just moved my tank, who has piss-poor speed and non-existent magic resistance, in range of the boss, which I realized too late, I tried to line up other tempting targets. But as you can see, this blowhard wasn't fooled easily. Since these battles can last well over an hour, there's nothing worse than reaching the end only to have one of your top soldiers choke on you! In the next chapter, part of your goal is to lure the Crow Tribe's king out, so your bird Lagoos can talk some sense into his stupid ass. But again, be very careful about who you put out there to bait Nacella. Okay, now Marine's all healed up and ready to take on this chapter's boss. And here we go. Ooh yeah! You like it, don't you? Come on, let's see what you got. You got no holy fucking shit! 1 hit point left. Now do you folks see why complacency on your part can fuck your troops over? One weird thing though, as inconveniently sharp as the bosses can be, their grunts can be complete dumbshits. I lost count of how often I just left Ike in the vicinity of a squad I wanted out of the way, and they just threw themselves onto his sword. Ugh, I guess some people never learn. One ridiculously nitpicky complaint I have is Ike's bratty little sister, Mist. She starts out as nothing but a healer, but what changes after her promotion? Ooh, looky here, she got herself a pony, yay! She can now use a sword too, but her strength's so abysmal it's practically useless. When it comes to a video game hero's little sister, she's quite possibly even more useless than Roll. At least Roll can annihilate people with her torpedo hooters. Why didn't such an important character get the ability to use light magic like Riss, the other healer you start with? Then she'd be worth using. I mean, occasionally an enemy's gonna slip by and nail your healer. If Riss could use that light tome that siphons away HP, he'd be fucking cat food! I also hate the game's bad habit of not explaining some crucial details. There's in-game tutorials for almost all the battle mechanics, but the game never really clues you in on how to recruit extra characters, and oftentimes, I wound up killing them only to find out later they were potential recruits. Usually, you just need Ike to talk to them, but if you need another character and he or she's not on your team, you're screwed! Also, the game really didn't explain skills all that well either. Not good, considering Ike has better odds of shitting a golden egg than besting the Black Knight without Aether. But perhaps the biggest kick in the balls came when I found out that on normal difficulty, part of the final battle is nixed entirely. If you want to see the villainous mastermind actually use the Fire Emblem, which is radiating dark power solely because of the world war he started, you needed to play on the harder difficulties. Now, something like this is all fine and dandy in shorter games. Old school Konami games like Ninja Turtles 4 come to mind, but this game took me over 40 hours! Sorry, I need to move on. I don't have the time to blow through all that again, especially considering that the Wii game, Radiant Dawn, is the direct sequel that picks up where this left off. Despite all my minor nitpicks, though, those 40+ hours were filled with something special. At the end of the day, Path of Radiance really wasn't as epic as Shining Force 2 or Disgaea, but it didn't have to be. It delivers exactly what one expects from Nintendo. Good, clean, fucking fun. It's not just one of the most underrated GameCube games and RPGs of its generation, it's one of the most underrated Nintendo games, period, and easily gets a 9 out of 10.